Welcome to Real Business. I'm Andy Simon. I'm a corporate anthropologist, and we do, among other things, videos for real business to help companies like yours better understand how to deal with these changing economic times. Today, I'd like to share with you a story from somebody who attended one of my workshops. I do workshops called Change Matters, and I work with CEOs who need to better address how to continue revenue growth, respond to these changing times. Change is not something we know how to do, and change is literally pain. Jim has a snow chain company in St. Louis, and he attended one of these workshops, and it was very interesting because we had several dinners afterwards. At the workshop, we were talking about how do you begin to see, feel, and think differently about your own business. How do you begin to see things that could be right in front of your nose and open your minds up so that the ideas can become new lines of business, perhaps? When Jim left, he had 8 years owning a company that had grown very nicely through market share growth and had all of a sudden plateaued. And what he was struggling with, and that was the reason in part he was at the workshop, was that growth wasn't coming any longer. Sales weren't there, and margins were becoming strained. Even though he was shrinking his staff and trying to adapt, the times were changing. So what does one do when sales aren't growing? You know you're in a particular kind of business. It's a 150-year-old business for snow chains. Where are you going? A couple of things that he discovered. One of which is that he had a wonderfully talented management team who very often were coming up with ideas, but the ideas had no place to go. And so rather than let them have groupthink where everyone said the same things, he broke them up into groups and began to develop them into innovation units, idea generators who had some very clever ways of seeing things. And out of it came, lots and lots of ideas. They began to identify the ones they thought were the most valuable. And some of these were right in front of them, which is what was so interesting about it. One idea, for example, was that they were in the fat chain business, and that's what they did. That's what snow chains were all about. But people came to them all the time looking for thin chain, different kinds of chain. And all of a sudden he had an epiphany that, my goodness, we're in the chain business, not the fat chain business, but chains. And so he went to partners who made thin chains and became a front door to them for their customers. So they both made a nice business, develop out of the chain business, not simply the fat chain business. And then there were markets like the government market that they hadn't penetrated at all. And this came out of their own staff. But his favorite story was of his purchasing agent, who was also an engineer, who had a friend who came to him, and he was in the birdseed business, this friend. And they wanted to make steel bird cages. So he asked the purchasing guy, where can I go in China to begin to manufacture bird cages? And after the gentleman said, well, I'm going to China, let me look for you, he came back and he said, why don't we make them for you? So next thing you know, the snow chain business became a manufacturer of bird cages. And the most interesting part was that when they shipped their own steel over, in their boats they had a lot of empty space. And these bird cages could now fill the empty space. So not only could he charge for shipping them, but he was now offloading the cost of shipping his own goods. Now I share with you Jim's story because it's a wonderful story. And he's been sharing the next phases with me as well because it's opened up his mind to things that were right in front of him. And it turned all of his team into an innovation team. And they were doing extremely well sorting out the things that really made sense for them. That was still part of the core business, but it was really a redefinition of what their core talent was and what their customers needed, which was the most interesting part. Customers were coming with needs and they were simply not solving them. So I share that with you, and there are other stories to share on my website. I urge you to take a look, and if you have a story that you'd like to share, please get a hold of us, and we would love to share it because we find that in the story are kernels of truth that you can apply to your own company. So let us know how you're dealing with this changing times, and you too can grow your revenue, and it's there and it's waiting for you. So thanks for joining us at Real Business, and we look forward to hearing from you.